Hi, welcome back for another Cooking Matters recipe video. I'm Chef Asata, and today we're going to be making stir fry using another one of our recipe frameworks. So you can choose the ingredients that you like the best, what you already have at home, what's on sale, and what fits in your budget. You can watch this video again and again, rewind, cook along with me, do it however you need to do, and you'll be able to successfully prepare this video at home. All right, let's take a look at the framework. You're going to pick ingredients from each of these sections. You're going to pick veggies that you like, pick your protein, pick your grain, and your choice of sauce and flavorings. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is get our brown rice started because we're serving our stir fry with brown rice. And if you're not familiar with brown rice, it is a whole grain, but it takes a little longer to cook than white rice. White rice is 20 minutes typically, brown rice is 40. So let's prep the brown rice first. I'm going to measure out 1 cup of brown rice and rinse it in a colander. And then we'll add it to our boiling water, give it a stir, and let it go. So today I'm going to use a mix of vegetables that includes carrots, broccoli, onion, garlic of course, and cabbage. We're going to get some additional pops of flavor from jalapeno and fresh ginger. So you can use whatever veggies you have, and some alternatives might include vegetables like celery, red bell pepper, some mushrooms if you've got them, or even edamame, which is soybeans. They're really great to keep in the freezer because they're high in protein, high in fiber. First, I'm going to cut everything and get my mise en place together. Mise en place means everything in its place. And with a recipe like a stir fry, where you're cooking over high heat and it all comes together very quickly, you want to make sure you have everything prepped and ready to go. I'm going to start by dicing an onion. I'm going to just trim off the ends, cut it in half so that I now have a nice flat surface to work with. And the cool thing about onions is they give you guidelines. So I'm going to trim or slice right into the center, into the core. Following those lines, turn the onion 90 degrees and slice down, and you just dice the onion. Okay, next we're going to peel and chop a couple of carrots. Just using a vegetable peeler here. And of course, all your scraps can go into compost. And for most recipes, I like to have about half as much carrot as I do onion, because the onions are going to cook down and be like a base of flavor, but the carrots are still going to maintain their structure. So you don't need as much carrot as you have onion. And since carrots are pretty hard, I'm going to cut these a little thin so that they will cook at the same rate the rest of the vegetables do. All right, so we'll just cut them into rounds. Keep it simple, right? Take all the time you need to be safe. This isn't a race, it's just dinner. Great, we've got our carrots cut up. We'll set them aside and move on to our broccoli. Now I'm not gonna use this whole head of broccoli. It's a bit too much. We'll just use about half of it. I like to cut my broccoli from the bottom. That way I don't lose a lot of the florets in the cutting process. And you can just see where the broccoli naturally separates. Cut right through and pull it apart. We'll save the rest of that for later. Now, I'm going to cut our little florets apart. I'm using the stem of the broccoli as well because it's perfectly edible. Why throw it away? If anything, you just want to trim off some of these extraneous leaves, then slice it so it's nice and bite-sized. Everything in the stir fry should be kind of bite-sized. Now I have little people in my house, so I tend to cut the vegetables on the smaller side because, you know, kids will use any excuse they can to wiggle out of dinner. I want to make sure they can actually bite everything I give them. Just letting you know, what you didn't see is that we did wash and prep all of these vegetables ahead of time. You want to make sure you're making everything safe and clean in the kitchen. Sometimes people are intimidated by vegetables that grow in the head, like cauliflower, broccoli, and cabbage. Don't be. There's nothing you can do to hurt this vegetable. What you really want to do is make sure you cut it safely. So you need a flat side. Rolly vegetables are not necessarily safe. So this one's got a nice flat end. I'm going to set it up on that end and just cut it in half. With a sharp knife, that's no problem. Now, if you have a little hand weakness, maybe from arthritis or tendonitis, you can use a serrated knife to saw back and forth to get through there so you don't have to put so much pressure on your wrist. But now I've got flat surfaces. Flat surfaces are a lot safer to cut. So with a lot of these vegetables, if you look inside, there's this little V that's kind of holding it all together. We're going to cut that out so we can cut the cabbage right into strips. So just get the tip of your knife in there and cut that core right out. And then slice down. The thinner you slice it, the closer you get to shredded cabbage. But for this recipe, you don't really need it finely shredded because it'll cook super fast. You want it all to have some texture at the end. I've got a wonderful head of fresh garlic today. And we're just going to pull a couple of cloves off of this. With these cloves, you can just put a knife over the top and press down. They'll come right out of that little garlic paper, just like that, whole clove. Repeat with the rest. This also helps to flatten out the garlic cloves, so again, we don't have a round thing that we're trying to cut, and it makes it much easier to mince. Mince just means chopping something finely into really small pieces. And with things that have big flavor, oftentimes you want to mince it so that they're small and their flavor disperses throughout the dish. And since ginger, garlic, and jalapenos all bring a bit of kick, we want to mince them. Okay, now take all of this smashed garlic, put it into a pile, and just run your knife through it until it's in teeny tiny pieces. Keep those fingers tucked in a claw-shaped form and they will be out of harm's way. Especially that pinky. That pinky likes to stick out there. Reel that pinky in, tuck it under, tuck in that thumb, and keep that claw intact. Keep your fingers safe. You could, of course, use a garlic press. And if fresh garlic isn't available, you can always go with garlic powder. What we don't want to reach for is the garlic salt. You can't control the sodium in garlic salt, so you're double dipping in the sodium pot. Okay, let's start on that jalapeno. So, how do you know how hot it is? You just don't. It's kind of a gamble. But the ones that have cracks and crevices, those little white lines on them, tend to be a little bit hotter. They're a little more mature. But what we're going to do is remove the seeds and the membranes from the inside because that tempers the pepper. That works with most peppers that have a little heat. I'm just going to split it in half. And you may want to use gloves if you're a little cautious. Once I can open it up, use the tip of the knife to just cut out the membranes, pull out the seeds, and we will move right along with our pepper now that we've tempered it a bit. If you can't find some fresh jalapenos, you can go with a pinch of crushed red chili pepper flake or cayenne. So where this is going is in our sauce. We're going to go with more of a spicy soy sauce, so that's what the jalapenos for. But you can skip the heat if that does not appeal to you. Anytime you're dealing with peppers, you do not want to touch your eyes or your nose, your face. You want to wash your hands so that you don't get any of that heat somewhere where you're going to regret it. Okay, so now I'm going to mince this jalapeno up nice and fine because it has big, bold flavor, and put it right into the bowl where we're going to build our sauce. First thing I want to do is slice it into thin strips. Turn that whole pile 90 degrees and cut down. We've got a nice mince. Oh yeah. So we're using fresh ginger today, which looks like this. Sometimes folks haven't seen it. It looks kind of like a claw. You wouldn't use all of this. This is a lot of ginger. But you can substitute ground ginger or ginger paste if you can't find the fresh ginger. I'm going to use a piece, and typically I use a piece that's about the size of my thumb. And just use either a knife or a spoon to cut the skin off. And then you can mince it up by hand, which I will do with this knife. Or you can use a hand grater, like you used to grate cheese, or a microplane. And there you go. So you've got a knob of ginger about 1.5 inches long. And we're going to do the mince thing again where you slice it into thin strips in one direction. I'm actually cutting across the grain. Ginger is kind of fibrous, and so if you cut across those fibers, it makes it easier to cut the second time. All right, got our ginger ready. Now, if I was using ground ginger or the powdered ginger, I might put it in the sauce. But since we're using fresh ginger, I'm gonna want it to cook for a little bit to kind of temper it. So it's gonna go in with the vegetables into the stir fry. All right, let's make our sauce. The sauce is really easy. We already have our jalapeno chopped up, minced up, nice and fine in the bowl. We're gonna go in with a 1/4 cup of low sodium soy sauce. And soy sauce has a lot of nice earthy flavor, umami. It's got a salty kick. After that, we're gonna follow up with 1 tablespoon of brown sugar. So we're building the flavors and like hitting your palate on all sides. We've got the salty, we've got the sweet. We're gonna add a little cornstarch. It's gonna help to thicken the sauce as it cooks. Cornstarch on its own doesn't have a whole lot of flavor, but it is a natural thickener. So we'll get a little cornstarch in there. And our jalapenos already in there. Don't feel bad if the cornstarch doesn't completely dissolve. That's fine. It will dissolve once you add it to the pan and you start cooking. So we're going to stir this up and have it aside. Okay, now it's time for us to prepare the chicken. I'm starting with a new cutting board because we want to make sure we're not having any cross-contamination issues. Whenever you're dealing with raw meat, there's a potential for bacteria to be present, and there's a potential to spread that bacteria throughout your kitchen. Some people feel comfortable wearing gloves, but what's most important to keep in mind is that your hands are clean. Wash your hands before you put your gloves on. And then I like to use tongs anytime I'm using large pieces of raw meat, just so that I don't have to manipulate it by hand. I'm gonna lay the chicken out on this cutting board so it's going parallel to my body. And you can work in small batches so that you don't have raw chicken slinging all over the kitchen. From there, I just use the tongs to hold on to the chicken and slice across the grain into 1-inch strips. And it's kind of like when we were cutting our vegetables earlier. Turn 90 degrees, cut down, and you've just cubed your chicken. We're using chicken breast today, but of course you could use chicken thighs or any other boneless cut. And honestly, stir fry is so flexible that you can find all manner of proteins to go in here. We mentioned the edamame beans earlier. If you're a seafood fan, you can go that route. You can even use pre-cooked leftover chicken from another meal. I've even used sausages from the grill. One of the things I love about stir fries and fried rice is a great way to use a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So if you don't have enough broccoli to make a meal for the family and you only have a couple of carrots left, you can pull it all together to make a huge, delicious, healthy meal in just a matter of minutes. I know we've been cutting and dicing for a while now, but we are now done. And the rest of this recipe goes together super fast, which is why we had to have our mise en place together. Everything's gonna go into the pan in very short order. Now, I'm finished with my chicken, so what I wanna do is get rid of these chicken tongs, get rid of this chicken knife, and get rid of these chicken gloves. Okay, we're ready to get started cooking. The first thing I wanna do is get my pan nice and hot because we are doing a stir fry, so we're gonna wanna sear our ingredients. While the pan is heating up, I'm gonna just go over my mise en place really quickly. I've got all my vegetables chopped up, ready to go. The garlic and the ginger are nice aromatics. Our chicken is diced and ready, and our sauce is already prepared. The only thing we need to do now is heat up a little bit of oil. I'm using some olive oil today, but any cooking oil will do, and you only need about a tablespoon. I get asked a lot, how do you know when the pan is ready? Well, the oil will shimmer. It'll look like a breeze blowing across a still lake. You'll get a nice shimmer on the surface. That tells you that your oil is hot. So you just tilt your pan a couple of times, and as the oil is moving, once you see it shimmer, it should be good and hot. We can test it by putting a little piece of chicken in here and seeing if it sizzles. You hear that? That's the sound of magic. Go ahead and get your chicken in the pan. You want one nice even layer. If you scoop your meat into the pan away from you, you don't have to worry about getting splattered by hot oil. Get rid of that chicken cutting board. Let's spread everything out and let that chicken brown. It's gonna take about 3 to 4 minutes on one side, then we'll stir it up and let it cook about 2 to 3 minutes on the second side. Okay, our chicken has been cooking for a few minutes on one side, so we just want to stir it up and look at that golden brown color. Isn't that beautiful? We want to cook this chicken until there's no more pink. That way we know it's done. It's cooked all the way through. This is just to get a nice sear on the chicken. That caramelization equals flavor. It's worth it to take the extra 5 minutes to sear your chicken to get that golden brown color and help build up layers of flavor in your dish. Okay, our chicken is done. There's no more pink. Let's transfer the chicken into a bowl for now. Just set it aside, keep it close. And now we're gonna cook our vegetables. Gonna add just another little ½ tablespoon of oil. Get those onions started so they have a chance to caramelize, get nice and sweet. And then we're gonna add our vegetables, hardest to softest. Get those onions in one layer. And as they start to get a bit translucent, we'll add the rest of the vegetables. Now, once you get your onions in the pan, you'll notice you'll be able to scrape up the brown bits from the chicken. You want that, that's flavor, that's the fond. Next, we'll get our carrots in because they're nice and hard. They're gonna need some time to cook. Then we'll add our broccoli, cook it until it's a very vibrant green color. The rest of it all comes together really fast after that. While the broccoli is cooking, let's go ahead and get the garlic and the ginger in. And you want to saute those until they get aromatic. You should be able to smell the garlic and smell the ginger, then you're ready for the next step. The thing about stir fry is you really want to keep the texture and the color intact. So I'm keeping my eye on this broccoli. It's going to be my barometer. When it turns a gorgeous emerald green, I'll know the whole thing is done. We're about halfway there. Let's get this cabbage in. We'll wilt it down with the sauce that we've already made. And return the chicken to the pan so it can just warm through because it's already done. Any juices that have settled out of the chicken while it's been waiting in the bowl, go in the pan as well because those juices are delicious. Remember our sauce with the jalapenos? That's going in. Give it a stir first because sometimes the cornstarch likes to settle at the bottom. We want it in the pan where it will thicken up the sauce as it cooks. We use all of our senses in eating. It's got to look pretty, it's got to smell good. All of that happens before it even hits your palate. So if it looks good and it smells good, odds are good even your picky eaters will eat it. Let's get this chicken back in the pan. Stir it all together. If your sauce looks like it's getting a little thick, you can just pour in a couple of tablespoons of water to thin it back out because the cornstarch is a thickener. You want to make sure that the vegetables and the chicken all get coated by that delicious sauce. And at that point, your stir fry is basically done. All right, let's plate this up. We've got our brown rice with its whole grain goodness going right into the bowl. About a ½ cup serving there. And we're gonna top it off with our beautiful stir fry. Ooh, I smell ginger and garlic. Just like at the restaurant. Okay, and in here you'll see not only do we have whole grains, but we've got our gorgeous chicken protein and lots of different vegetables all combined in one happy bowl. Where's my fork?